I, among many people here, knew Sandy for decades and decades and loved him dearly. So I know that we're all here to honor him and to feel his love. It's said that the spirits of those who have passed do not depart for their work on the next plane until they have comforted those who have been so bereft at their leaving. I've been feeling it, been talking to him. So as I said, I'd like to ask the family to speak first, and they can show the slideshow. Thank you so much for doing that. And then I'd like to ask those in the community who would like to tell a story. There's so many of us. We have so many memories. I wish each of us could talk as long as we wanted to. However, we can't. So, except for the family, I'm going to just watch the time. And if it's been a couple of minutes, I'm going to sound a tone. And that would be a sign to wrap it up. Hopefully, if people want to stay on after, could go a couple hours. There can be more sharing then, but some will need to leave. So in order to give everyone a chance, if you want to speak when I open it to the community, please raise your hand.
I'd like to.
My apologies to those of you I don't know. I knew so many of Sandy's friends, but he was very wide-ranging and world roaming. So I'm glad to see you here today and embrace you.
Rabbi Sarah, I just want to say, if anybody wants to speak after the family, please use your controls on Zoom to raise your hand. We won't be looking at you to see if you're raising your hand on the screen. So please use your control that lets you raise your hand. Thank you.
Barbara wanted to say something.
Yes. Sandy's dear friend Herb Rosenberg registered, but he never got the link. So he just called me because he wants to get in. Is there anything I can do to let him in?
Do you have? Yeah, we can certainly copy the link and send it to his email immediately.
Oh, can I copy the link? Can I copy the link that I have and just send it to him?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, fine. I'll do that because he never got acknowledgement of registering.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. A blessing. Jonathan, you were going to
Yes.
do a little bit of davening, and then we could see this slideshow.
Yeah. Let's do an intention. God of our ancestors, give us the courage to speak words of wisdom in memory of our dear Sandy. May these words rise high along with his neshama as we lift him higher and higher. May God bless this beautiful family that survives him to live with his heritage and legacy. And we will all dedicate our lives to Torah, to Avoda, to Tefillah, all the things that Sandy was dedicated to in his life. It helped us lift up our actions for mitzvot and Torah in this world, for Tikkun Olam. So now I give forth the room. Ken Yiratzon to the family. Let's lift up his neshama. Shoshana.
Okay, so bear with me. I'm not as technologically savvy as I might look. So I went through and pulled just a lot of pictures, and I have a little slideshow, but on iTunes, I haven't quite figured out how to make two different songs. So I might pause it, change the music, and then so we're not listening to the same song on repeat. So I guess I need to just share my screen. Let me figure out how to do that one.
And check the box that says share sound. That's on the share screen, so you can share the sound.
Okay. Nope. Okay, well, I guess that was good. That was a good start. Could you can't see my screen though. You can just hear it, right? So where's share screen?
Green button at the bottom.
The green, oh, there we go. Okay.
Click share sound too.
Share sound. Great.
Unmute. Okay, we're on. Hi, guys.
Okay. I
I'm just going to sound some tones, Shoshana,
You muted us, Shoshana.
while you get that going.
Oh, I just have a minute.
Put it up whenever it's ready to go.
Can you?
There's only sound, no video.
Yeah, I don't know how to get the. Hold
I
on.
know, while she's working it out.
Okay, come help me. Okay, let's see what's going on here. This is what happens when I share my screen. Yeah. Oh.
You gotta make sure it's loaded up so you can click on it when you're sharing screen. You have to make sure that whatever you're sharing is clicked on and acknowledged.
Can anyone see it?
No,
Okay, see, so I have to share the screen.
Yeah.
And then, oh, photo.
Can she make someone else a co-host and help?
No, you gotta share it yourself. Yeah,
Send it to
the slideshow, is it all ready to go on
Yeah, it's on my iPhotos.
on your iPhoto? Yeah, you have to bring it up first and then click on it.
share your desktop, like share screen, click on your desktop. You're on a Mac, so I can't really give you good directions.
Okay, give us a second. All right. Yeah.
practice.
Why don't you guys start and I'll practice this.
Okay, let's open up the room then for sharing. Let's open up the room for memories and sharing and blessings and great stories and narratives. Let's open the room. Okay, Deb, did you want to
Shoshana should turn off the music.
let's turn off the sounding and let's have people share. Go ahead. Who would like to go first? Who would like to say something in memory of Sandy? Their memories, stories.
I'm looking for some raised hands in the chat.
I see. Who wants to speak first? Go ahead,
Deb
Layla
Jacobson.
and Marcia. Yeah, go ahead. Go for it.
Today is my
Deborah
husband
Jacobson.
Ezra's birthday, and my memory includes Sandy on Ezra's birthday, when we went for a, what do you call
Who
it?
is speaking?
This is Leela Van Gelder, friends of Sandy for many decades. We went with a few of Ezra's friends, including Sandy, to a car, what do you call this? Crash car, go-kart racing place. And all of these intense engineers came and got in their costumes and racing cars, and they were racing and bumping and trying to do all the right speeds and achieve runs. And Sandy drove with his hands in his air, happy and enjoying driving wherever the car would take him. And he had pure joy and just love and pleasure out of every pore of his body. And that's how I will always remember him.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Who's next? Beautiful.
Deborah Jacobson. I'm Sandy Leeder's cousin, Deborah Jacobson, here in the Bay Area. And my memories of Sandy were when I was in grad school. And he was so helpful because it was very stressful. And he would come up with his friend Brian Silk and we go to yoga classes together. And it just helped me a lot. And also, of course, I remember the most is that we would get together with the leaders and we'd usually go over to their place in Palo Alto. And, I remember when all the kids were born And I remember their wedding out in Stinson Beach. And, you know, the leaders were always a part of our lives. And as cousins, there was always that connection, whether we saw a lot of them or saw a little of them. And of course, Sandy was one of a kind. There's no question. Sandy was one of a kind. So we wanted to honor his life by joining the Shiva today. Thank you.
Going to do a short reading. To everything there is a season, a time for everything under the sun, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to laugh and a time to mourn, a time to seek and a time to lose. This is a time we gather to remember someone, Shmuel, Lev, Sandy, Stuart, Leeder, who gave meaning to our lives and saved many other lives. This is the time we recall the bonds that hold us, the love we shared, the memories that sustain us. We are loved by an unending love. We are embraced by arms that find us even when we are hidden from ourselves. We are touched by fingers that soothe us even when we are too proud for soothing. We are counseled by voices that guide us even when we are too embittered to hear. We are loved by an unending love. We are supported by hands that uplift us even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us even when we are too weak for meeting. We are loved by an unending love, the divine that created us, that created the earth upon which we stand, our ancestors who came before us, those who will come after us. We are in a great web of being created and sustained by love, embraced, touched, soothed, and counseled. Ours are the arms, the fingers, the voices. Ours are the hands, the eyes, the smiles. Ours is the love. We are loved by an unending love. I just want to say a few words to start, which is that Sandy lived a very energetic life. When I try to catalog the things that he did in his life that were not only extraordinary and joyous, but also meaningful, the list is so long. It goes on and on. Like a diamond. He had so many facets and so many aspects. He loved to swim. When he was in Berkeley, would swim in Lake Anza. When he was in Israel, in the Kinneret. He loved chasing eclipses all over the world. He saved people, you know, he made it his art, the saving of lives. And he danced and he sang and he studied Torah and he did a lot of math. Once he did my taxes without a calculator, stoned faster than I could do them with a calculator, not stoned. It was just extraordinary. So there are lots of stories we want to tell. Shoshana, is the presentation ready?
No, we're gonna have to work on it and send it to Lorelai.
Okay, so would someone from your family like to speak while you're doing that, or shall I go to others?
Okay.
Elaine, is there something you'd like to say, or are you too?
Yes, I'm unmuting.
Okay, and please identify yourself and how you knew Sandy.
Okay. Hi.
Please identify yourself and how you knew Sandy.
Okay, I'm here with the Leeder family. Sandy was my brother on a street corner in Africa. I had a mattress that I needed carrying, and of course he put it on his head and carried it as if he'd been in Africa carrying goods. And he looked at me, because we were all hippies in New York at the time, and he looked at me, and in typical Sandy fashion, the first words out of his mouth were, "You look ridiculous." And that's the loving Sandy that I knew and had great fun with. I'm here today with Shira, Shoshana, Asher, and Diane, and we're getting the slideshow ready, which we would like to send to Lorelai to show. because we're not able to organize it. The family's been in mourning for quite a while. Sandy has been down for years. And so we're very grateful that all of you are here today. We're honored that he did so much, and we appreciate all that he did in the world. And let me say seriously, the family misses him. We're in the house in Berkeley right now, and we're surrounded by photographs and artifacts and things from African pictures. And the family wants me to tell you that you're all welcome to come over here today. We really love you to come and pay honor to Sandy, to look at all of the wonderful pictures that surround us, and soon, which we will send to Lorelei in Houghton. That's it, unless one of the other leaders want to say something.
I have stuff to say soon. We'll see. Everybody should go, and we'll go towards the end.
And let me say, the family was not expected, it didn't understand that they were to present immediately. And so we're quickly on the fly putting it all together. But Shoshana prepared a very beautiful slideshow that you will see from birth unto death. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you for doing that. And
Excuse
you
me.
just put it on.
May I just say that Kulano's Male Levine is an expert at slideshows. And if you'd like to send them to her, she's on this call and she'd be happy to get the photos up for you.
It's a different problem.
I'll put her email in.
No, we don't have that address.
I'm putting it in the chat.
And Shoshana, do that whenever you want. If you want to do it 3 days from now, we'll all just come back. Diane, Akiva, anyone else there in the house with you like to speak? Jack, I see your hand, but I'm wanting to let the family speak first.
I think you guys should just go around and keep your story, and we'll get ours together.
Oh, there I am.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Did you want to talk on it?
Lane, can you turn your volume off? I think it's causing a
Get
problem.
ours together.
Oh, there I am.
Lane, can you turn?
Okay, Elaine, you should turn off your thing. Turn off your thing and just be on the computer.
I did.
All right, let's everybody take a deep breath.
Can you mute us?
And before anybody else speaks, I want you to just imagine Sandy's face. Just imagine his face with his eyes all squinted up the way he smiled, and his cheeks so rosy, and that beautiful smile on his face. Just imagine his face. I feel him here so strongly. And I also feel that he's happy. He was ill for so long that he's just flying high. And although he said he didn't believe in God, I do think he has now met God. Or whatever aspect of that he can allow in before the full flood of the divine comes upon him. So, okay, so who would like to speak now? Let me just, I could go in order of what's on my screen, if that's all right with you. So that would mean Marcia.
Okay, I don't know what's on your screen, but here I am. I met Sandy originally at the Aquarian Minyan for High Holy Days, and I went to where the children's service was. He was about 6 or 7, and he's 46, so it must have been 40 years ago. And there, dripping children, redheaded, they all seem to be redheaded, and he had all these shofars and low, and the big ones and little ones, things I'd never seen. And I grew up in the kind of place where one person blew, and he was giving them out to the kids, and I said, can I try that? I had never handled one or blown one, and he told me what to do, and but it was the first try. And I've had wonderful Shabbats at Sandy's house there in Berkeley, and wonderful Shabbat with him in Tzfat and swam in the Kinneret, all at his instigation. And when I lost a dear, dear friend, oh, I'll go with you. I know her from the Marfan Society. And doing so many things in so many ways. I bought a house in Berkeley, and just before it closed, the person who, and I got cold feet and said, oh, I think I want to get out of this. And they said, this is the legal time you can get out of it. And I said, good house for Shira. I hear Sandy's looking for a house for Shira. And that's the house you're in. I it on. I never actually ended up living there, but that's where you are on 1928 YOLO. So didn't see Sandy for a long time, and sometimes I saw him a lot, and it was always, however much it was wonderful.
Thank you. Stacy Kennedy.
Hi, I'm a friend of Shira's, and I met her dad, Sandy, I believe 2007. It was at his place in Berkeley. There was a party for Shira or some kind of event or so, and I remember how warm and down to earth and welcoming he was, and I certainly will always remember that. So thank you.
Reb Yaakov.
Yes, thank you so much. So I just want to say a couple of things. One is there's some people who are on this Shiva who from far away who knew Sandy when he was doing his work with the Beit YISRAEL. So I just want to do a shout out to Will and to Susan and also to Asher Alias. And I also want to do a shout out to the woman from the Lemba community who's also online. And these were people who worked or were aware of what Sandy was doing at the same time as he was doing it in the early 1980s and the 70s to save communities where Jews were either oppressed or dying or in the middle of a war zone. And so I just want to thank all of them for being here to honor him, because, you know, my sense is Sandy would be happy to see you, and he'd tell you so. He'd give you a big bear hug, as he would give me when I lived in Berkeley about 10 years ago. So I just remember him as being this lovely, kind, generous person who did Pidyon Shvuyin, which is a phrase which means rescuing or ransoming the kidnapped. You know, if there were communities that felt like they were about to go under because of all the wars and crap that was happening around them, Sandy would like pick himself up and go see them. Not everybody does that. Very few people do that. So I want to honor all those people who did that with him and all the things he did. And I want to just share one more little piece, which is Anu olim visharim al haravot ufkarim Anu posim ve'ovrim uvaor uvachashecha uvyodim uvlo yodim et haderech nelecha Anu olim visharim Anu olim visharim. We are rising as we sing. Through these bad lands we're wandering. We are crossing, passing on through the nighttime into dawn. Knowingly, unknowingly, on this road we're bound to be. We are rising as we sing. We are singing and wandering. I love you and thank you.
Jeff Silk.
So, hello to everybody. My father, Brian, was one of Sandy's closest friends. And so I go way back with the Leeder family. And when I think of the Sandy and Leeder family, I think of complete organized chaos that somehow Sandy made love of. I think back to various family moments. I think back to Passover celebrations, and I think back to Sandy and his very own brand of mysticism and Judaism. And I think back to Sandy as being a father. So very early Passovers when the kids were young, and I guess I was younger and my wife Naomi was younger. It's, if you can only imagine a Passover at Sandy's house with his kids young. I don't know if David's on the call, but David would have been at these Passovers.
Sandy and Diane's house.
Yeah. And so let me just tell you some fun Passover stories. First of all, Sandy had always led the Passovers, had a staff, had his white outfit, linen shirts, linen pants, and we went around the table. And Shoshana, not to pick on you, but you must have been like 3 or 4, something like that. And I don't know if you were going after the afikomen or a piece of chocolate, but I'll never forget. You got out of your chair and you jumped on the table and you stepped in the harosis. And my wife, Naomi, and I are kind of looking around, and I think your father said, you know, Shoshana, get off the table. And you got off the table and you sat back down. And I don't remember, I think you guys had a dog, and I think the dog took off your shoe to lick the harosis off your shoe. And whole bunch of other funny things like that would always happen at these Passovers. And, you know, to me, the interesting point of the story is that Sandy always focused on the big picture, what mattered the most, and never really was hung up in the little things that didn't work out perfectly. And that's a pretty exceptional talent for anybody to have in their life. And it's something I always admired about Sandy. It's something that I will have memories of Sandy. But I'll never forget the Passovers at the Leeder household when everybody was younger. I'm just going to ramble on a little more.
Just a little more.
Okay, so I totally remember Shira's bat mitzvah and the speech that your father gave. I remember this one great event when Asher was younger. And I don't know if when you were getting into, I guess, body surfing or something like that, and your father was just like so proud of you. This would have been down in Monterey. This is easily 20, 30 years ago. Anyway, so I have these great memories of Sandy as a father. I have a great memory of Sandy leading his own brand of Judaism. Sandy clearly is a legend who has touched all of us. And we all certainly have many Sandy memories that'll live on forever. Thank you.
Thank you. When I first met Sandy, it was at the Joys of Jewishing in the 80s, so more than 40 years ago. And we bonded over bonfires because we both loved bonfires. And he was great at building them and I was great at enjoying them. And everybody would be in the building that we found cold and dark, big building made of redwood. And he and I and Shoshana and my daughter Aaliyah and my daughter Shandel would sit outside with the bonfire, not understanding why everybody wasn't joining us. And we would get stoned and my girls would say, "What's that?" And we would say, "Oh, it's medicinal herbs." And we did that summer after summer and had many high times on other occasions as well. Who's got their hand up next? Let me see.
Modrek, you have Modrek. Modrek.
Thank you so much for letting me speak. So I'm Modrek and I'm from Zimbabwe in Africa. So I first met Sandy in 2010. He came to Zimbabwe with Jack Zeller on a Kulanu business, and that was my first opportunity to see him. And my impression of him, the first time that I saw him, he came out as rather, what do you say, like the Israeli food that is thorny outside. Yes, exactly that one. And later, as I got to know him, over the course of that visit, I saw him as a very sweet person, a very caring person, caring about humanity and about changing the world. And he came back again twice to Zimbabwe. That is after that first visit. The next time was in 2011, and then in 2012, we started meeting in my community for Pesach Seders, not as families, but would come together as a whole community, sometimes 100 people, sometimes more. And we started doing this when Sandy came and introduced this to us. We had never had a Pesach Seder before, and when he started and introduced this to us, we started meeting every year. So Sandy came in 2011 and then in 2010, and we would, him and I, that is, attend outside one of the Lemba elders' house, and we would sit together outside the tent, and he would tell me about his children. And from that, I learned he was a caring father, loving his children a lot. He was a person who loved life. Like somebody already said, he told me about the many eclipses that he chased. We talked about the star formations and a lot of things. And the most important thing that I would like to share that Sandy imparted to me was in African tradition, people are not so ready, especially fathers or male friends to their male friends, to say how much they love their friends and how much they love the people that they love. Is something that you hardly hear from maybe your father or your uncle. But Sandy wasn't like that. Every time that we talked, whether on Skype, you would end the meeting saying, "I love you guys." So it was awkward at first, but then I started adopting that tradition also. You gotta show the people that you love and tell them every opportunity that you get to tell them that you love them. And I started doing that, and it's a good thing. So he might not be with me now. He was my mentor, my friend, and he became like a father to me. And I guess he's with us right now, and he can hear me when I say for the last time. No, not for the last time, because I always love you in my heart. So I love you, Sandy, with all my heart. Be well or rest is my friend. Thank you.
Is Mayor here?
Amen.
Amen. Amen, Modrek.
Amen. Amen. Is Mayor here? Okay.
The Schoenwalds have their hands up.
Right. I'd like to have a song. I'd like to have a song about love. What have we got?
Ahava verachamim chesed v'shalom ahava verachamim chesed v'shalom.
Everybody la la with us. Just la la.
Ahava verachamim chesed v'shalom.
Joe Schoenwald, Rolinda, would you speak?
Gotta unmute, brother. Rabbi.
So, Yeshet Koyach to everyone who participated in bringing this Shiva together for us so that we could remember our good friend, a fierce warrior of our people, a great Jew, and above all, a most loving father. So I say to you, Shoshana and Akiva and Shira and Asher and Diane, I say to all of you, you know, your father in his weakest times in his life, in pain, I called him up, and it was the first time he had been short with me on the phone. I said, what's going on? He said, listen, I'm sorry. This was 2 weeks ago. He said, I'm sorry. I've got work to finish. I'm taking care of my kids. I got to complete paperwork, do this and that. This was what occupied his time in the last coherent days of his life. So to say that he loved you kids is really an understatement of immense, immense power. That's what he cared about, and that's what he was focused on. I want to take off from where Rabbi Gabriel ended. And I wanted to say, because I think it's important to say this. I don't know how many people realize that when Sandy and Jerry Strauss and Joel Newberg set out to the Sudan in that clandestine operation that brought Jews out of those camps, bought them out, shochad, they literally got them out by paying for their lives, put them on a truck, and Sandy drove all night across the Sudan in order to rescue them. And I'm glad to see that Will Recant and Susan Pollack and Asher Elias are with us, because this is a chapter that has to be told. Sandy has earned his place in the history books of our people, because that activity, that action on behalf of Ethiopian Jewry prompted the Israeli government into action. I'll be a little cruder than that. It shamed them into action. And it may very well have started the whole exodus of Beta Israel. The other day at his funeral, there was an Ethiopian fellow there. There was a fellow from the Ethiopian community who Sandy's been helping ever since he arrived in Tzfat. The fellow runs a summer camp, and he spoke beautifully. And then he was having a conversation because another fellow from the Ethiopian community came by. Apparently, he was working in a cemetery. He wanted to know who the service was for. Realizing who was being buried, insisted on saying a few words and went on with beautiful Divrei Torah and said, had it not been for Sandy and his actions and his activities on behalf of Beta Israel, this fellow is saying, I, my parents, and my children would not be here today. It was a spine-tingling moment with the realization of a full circle. Sandy was a hero. Any way you look at it, he was a true givor. He risked his life. He did the impossible. It worked. He was successful. And for that, he'll be remembered. Yehi Zichro Baruch.
Amen.
I just want to say real quick that Sandy tell the story absolutely laughing about how he had a van full of people, but they couldn't be seen. And he, with his red hair and his freckles, and because he'd been in the Peace Corps, he spoke the native language. And he said, you know, when he'd come to a checkpoint, they'd all be scared to death, but the guys would look at this white guy who's, you know, like talking the language, whatever, and, you know, he'd kind of act a little crazy and say, oh, go on, go on, go on. So he had wonderful stories, and Henry was part of that, and Susan was part of that. Other people, Sandy wouldn't have taken the credit. He would say he was just part of it. But there is a book called Secret Exodus, which is written up. He's nicknamed there Red, and he also wrote up a manuscript, which I have a copy of. I know someone else does too, about, I think they called it Operation Moses. And Harriet, would you like to speak next?
Yes, I'd love to. I'm the president of Kulanu, and I, excuse me, I first met Sandy in 2002 when he had just returned from South Africa, where he attended a Lemba Cultural Association conference. And he came to my living room to debrief with Rabbi Abrami, who went with him, to debrief on their visit and talk about what had happened. I feel like he was a very close friend and colleague because we were communicating all the time on WhatsApp and Skype and Zoom, but I think I could count on my fingers the number of times I met him in person. But one was that day in my living room. One was the day that Aviva's son had a bris. He invited me to come to the bris. So I met Sandy again and the family. And then he came to the 92nd Street Y when Modric came on his second tour of the United States. And his first stop on the tour was the very prestigious 92nd Street Y. And there was an audience of more than 200 people there to learn about the Lemba in Zimbabwe. And Sandy introduced him. And on Sunday, when I was searching through Kulanu's archives and through the archives of, and through just the web in general, looking for wonderful material about Sandy to share, I found the recording from the 92nd Street Y and put it on the page, which I've listed in the chat, kulanu.org/Sandy-Leeder, where you can actually hear him introducing Modric in 2014, and then Modric's wonderful talk. And I just found it so moving to hear him explaining why he was so passionately committed to supporting the Lemba in their effort to reunite with the rest of world Jewry. He was so, he loved the fact that the Lemba had evidence that they came from ancient Israel, that they had their story of how they got to Southern Africa and how they lost their book and how genetic evidence showed that they were similar to other Jews, especially their priestly clan was similar to the Kohanim in terms of genetic material. And I was just so excited to hear that. I then saw him a few more times when he came to Kulana board retreats and had some wonderful private moments with him, just visiting the two of us. He was the treasurer after me, and we also did all kinds of business-like things together, just looking at Kulana's budgets and finances. And it was so wonderful to have him as an advisor in that area. But his passion for the Lemba, which he was devoted to in terms of his time, his love, his financial contributions, were made such a difference. It's hard to talk briefly, but I will try to stop. I also want to mention that Modric may be willing to play for us if we ask him.
Yes, we will. We'll call on him.
I also want to say that Modric is now a member of Kulana's board, thanks to Sandy, introducing us to him. And I also want to say that Jack Zeller, Kulana's founder, is here and also was a devoted friend of Sandy's.
We saw them in Israel too.
Oh, I'm sorry. My husband reminds me, excuse me, one of our best days with Sandy was when we visited Tzfat and met Ray and had dinner with them, and we were with my daughter and son-in-law, and he took us on a walking tour of Tzfat and showed us every spot that he loved so much and how much he loved being part of the Tzfat community. And of course, he always talked about his children.
I'd like to let Diane, you have your hand up?
Going. Hello, everybody. Want to thank you all for sharing your love and support for all of us and for Sandy. Going back to the AAEJ days in 1983, I was pregnant with Akiva, and Sandy went, and he said, is it okay to leave you alone? You have 2 other kids with special needs, and now you're pregnant. I said, go ahead. This is your sole contract. You need to go. So everything was fine, never worried. And all of a sudden I get a call one day from Mildred, Henry's wife, and said, Sandy's missing. We don't know where he is. They're in the van. We can't track them. We can't get a call. This is pre-cell phones, so we can't get a call to him, but we think he might be able to contact you to the States. And so here's our number. You need to call us if we're going, if you hear from him. And that was the only time I said, oh shit, what am I going to do? What are we going to do? So all of a sudden, I think what happened was Sandy was in a phone booth and Henry was in another phone booth trying to scream, Sandy, Sandy, Sandy. They didn't know that they were 3 phone booths apart. And that's how they reunited. And then Mildred called me and, said he's safe, he's okay. But it was kind of hairy. It was kind of like an hour, like, holy shit, what are we going to do? And then I must say the Dick Lawrence, I think he might be on with Ramona, his wife, who's passed right around Akiva's bar mitzvah. And they were at dinner pretty shortly afterwards, and we were coming up on, we need a name, we need a boy's name, and I said, I want a boy's name that ends with A. And I didn't want Joshua. And so Ramona and Dick came up with Akiva's name after Rabbi Akiva. So, and that was when Sandy was still in Africa. So he came home and everything was okay, but it was kind of hairy for a while. And but we were blessed that everything ended beautifully. So thank you, everybody.
I once asked a psychic, I'm part of a psychic community, as Diane is, what it was that was special about Sandy and Diane in supporting their children. And they said, these 2 souls have said, we're strong enough to help our children with whatever it is that they need. And so they did. And Sandy's life, a lot of it was making sure his children were always going to be taken care of in the family.
Truer words were never spoken, and I would like to speak on behalf of Shira, who sent me a message and asked me to do that, if that's okay. Do we have, I want to see if Shira is in the room on one of the cameras, maybe?
She was in the room. She's in the room where Diane is.
Okay, let me find Diane. Why can't I find Diane?
I think she was on Shoshana's iPad.
Shoshana Leeder. Okay, let's see her. Asked to start video. Oh, okay. Well, they're off video, but anyway, you all know Shira. Hold on one second. I just need to find what she sent me, which I have right there. Okay, so Shira asked me to read this. Hello, everyone. I am Shira Leeder, Sandy's daughter. My father loved me to death. Whoops. I'm sorry, this keeps jumping around. If everybody could just not write in the chat right now, because it makes it jump. All right, to continue with Shira, my father loved me to death. He gave me everything I wanted. He loved football, and we loved watching the 49ers each Sunday together as a family. He had a beautiful smile and loved very simple things. He was a genius at math and real estate. He was a generous father and a person who helped others, especially those who were less fortunate and the disability community. He took me skiing every year. My father always told me that I was his hero and inspiration, and he will always be in my heart forever. I love you, Dad. I will carry his memory in my heart forever. Love, Shira.
So Modrek and the Lemba, I see in the chat that you'd like to offer some music. Are you ready to do that? Otherwise, I can give you a moment.
Thank you. Yes, one of the things Sandy always told me was I wasn't supposed to let go of our traditions. We were coming back to Judaism, but he told me specifically, don't forget who you are. You are Lemba, keep your traditions, your music. And we were working on a big project for the Lemba, and we called it Lemba Nusak. It's about composing tunes for the prayers in the Sidua, so that we would have our own tunes during services. So we have an instrument that we play in the Lemba community, and it's called Mbira. So I want to play for a minute, one tune that we play when we are remembering a loved one who has passed on. So I will play. So that's for you there, Sandy. We'll always keep our traditions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Meir, are you here? Would you offer us some music? I don't know if anybody's ready to play Shlomo. Sandy loved Shlomo music. And
Achi Ben Shalom is here. Achi knows a lot of Shlomo. Achi?
okay, well, first, let me see. Meir, are you ready? Achi, are you ready?
Yes, I can go.
Thank you. This is Achi Ben Shalom, a member of the Aquarian Minyan community.
And leader of Nigonim and many other things.
Am I coming okay?
Yes, you're good. Thank you, Achi. Harley, would you like to speak?
Yes, hi. My name's Harley Shapiro, and I met Sandy in the late 60s when he first came back from the Peace Corps. And he was living in Potrero Hill with Norma and Janice, and there was this whole Peace Corps family that came back, and we're living in San Francisco, and we became just very close, a family. And I know Sandy has many different families of friends, as well as his biological family. One of the things at their apartment, he had he had this thing about solar eclipse, total solar eclipses. He had this map and it said total solar eclipse 1973. And this was like in the late 60s. And every time he was trying to recruit folks to go. And it turned out that Norma, Marion Murphy and I, Norma Hyatt, we went to meet Sandy in Africa. He was up in Niger. We landed in Lagos. We went up to meet him to see the total solar eclipse. And that was an incredible experience. And just the experience of being with him in Africa after he had been in the Peace Corps, he was just amazing. Some of the activities, he was just such a natural, this wild redheaded Jewish guy running around. He just fit in with everybody. With his manner, people just loved him, all the locals, and it just was so easy for us to travel. And it turned out that I was very fortunate to be able to go on more total solar eclipse visits with Diane. We ended up, I met them, they met me in India, and we traveled all around Rajasthan up to find the perfect spot to see a total solar eclipse. And we did it. It was a wonderful experience, of course, being in India. We also ended up going to Curacao for another solar eclipse, and it was also Mardi Gras. So we had an incredible time. So he was really my total solar eclipse soulmate with Diane, and so many wonderful experiences. There's two things that I'd like to, that are sort of fun that I remember. One is when we were traveling around Africa, when we were traveling either on a lorry or somewhere and we stopped to eat, he was very conscious to make sure it's clean food, kosher food. And I remember him taking me into the kitchen. He would just walk into the kitchen of this African cafe and look at the cook and look at the ingredients to make sure there was nothing that wasn't like clean. Of course, in the north, it was mostly Muslim, so we weren't going to have pork, but he still wanted to make sure it was clean and healthy and natural. So that was really taught me a lot. We had a wonderful Passover down here in Oakland and Berkeley. John and Marion had this wonderful big mansion that they were taking care of. And we would have these big parties and for holidays. So this one Passover, I don't know, we're going to probably have 40, 50 people. And Sandy, somewhere, he found a whole lamb. And he brought it and he dug a hole in the backyard and a pit, and he roasted it for our Passover to make it very authentic. And it was just things like that. And again, knowing the Leeder family for 54 years is quite incredible and quite a gift. His wild from Brooklyn village. He also taught me from Brooklyn, he learned that the whole world is little villages, and that's as simple as it can be. And that is so true. And, he was such a devoted family man, to Diane, which the two of them just having these wild adventures. And of course, his devotion to Shira and to Asher and to Shoshana and Akiva, and, having all these families and being able to have family in Ethiopia and the Sudan and Israel and India and Niger, and the San Francisco family, the Peace Corps group. He's really quite an amazing, and I just see him now on another adventure, this redhead shooting star. And it's just an incredible life that he had, and we're just so honored to know him. Blessings to the Leeder family.
This is a piece by Zelda. Each of us has a name, given by the source of life and given by our parents. Each of us has a name, given by our stature and our smile, our grin, and given by what we wear. Each of us has a name given by the mountains and given by our walls. Each of us has a name given by the stars and given by our neighbors. Each of us has a name given by our sins and given by our longing. Each of us has a name given by our enemies and given by our love. Each of us has a name given by our celebrations and given by our work. Each of us has a name given by our blindness, given by the seasons. Each of us has a name given by the sea and given by our death. Think what one word you would have, what name you would give Sandy, just for a moment. We don't need to say them out loud. Andrew Tirtis, would you like to speak?
Yes, hello. I'm not sure if I know Akiva's on. I don't know if he's has his audio on. I first met Sandy about 20 years ago at Chokhmah Halev doing a workshop, and we were partners, just sharing partners. And I remember sitting knee to knee, talking about our dreams and doing meditation. And I was getting ready to go to Israel for my first time. And he was talking about wanting to go there too. And the next time we saw each other was in Israel a couple of years later, and we'd see each other at weddings, at the Moshav Modi'in, sometimes on Moshav Aviezer. We were living with friends. Then when I moved to Portland with my family, we met Akiva and Amanda and their kids. And last saw Sandy in the past year. Just always appreciated his smile, and he had the unique way of getting really close and talking as if there was a secret he was sharing, a joy or some Torah or an adventure. So thank you, and sending love to the family.
I see some people have put their words for Sandy, their names in the chat. If those who would wish to would do that, it's just, my heart's so broken open. Any love that we're expressing here today is going straight in. So if you want to put those. Is there anyone else from the family who would like to speak? Barbara?
Oh. Yes, hi, I'm Barbara, and I'm Diane's sister and Sandy's sister-in-law and aunt to Asher and Shira and Akiva and Shoshana. Anyway, what I wanted to say is just a very funny sort of thing, because at the wedding for Diane and Sandy, which was at the Essex House in New York, Sandy forgot his shoes. So he came to get married and he had no shoes, and he had to wear his brother David's shoes at the wedding. And I just thought that was a really interesting way to start. My dogs are going crazy, so I'm going to mute myself so you don't have to listen to all of that. Okay.
Lorelai, have you gotten the video? See you guys.
Shoshana, I did receive the video, but it says it's still processing. And so as soon as I am able to download it, I will. Okay.
We don't hear anything.
Inaccessible.
Okay. Bonita?
I don't.
know anything about computers on?
We can't hear anything.
Hello, can you hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Bonita.
Okay, so I'm very active in Pulanu, and there's a few words I want to say about Sandy. So I had the privilege, when we knew that Sandy was sick and not doing well. And I, because of my position in Pulanu, I said, well, we need to record him and we need to have an article on him in our magazine. So if you want to hear Sandy, it's within the last year, talk about his journey in Ethiopia. It is recorded in his own voice. You can see it in the memorial page that Kulanu put up for him. There's also an article, I interviewed him for about 3 hours, and he doesn't only talk about Ethiopia in it, he talks about his family, moving to Tzfat, what his reasons for being involved in Jewish issues. He was a great lover of the Jewish people. He also was a great lover of the land of Israel. And he talks about his dream of moving there and how it kind of all fell into place. And when Harriet mentioned that he was treasurer of Kulanu, and when they invested money, it was in Israel bonds. And the last thing I want to say is that I spent over a week with him in Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, where he was not on the Beit Din, but he was actually an integral part of helping this thing happen. We converted over 60 people with a Beit Din there. And one of the pictures, there was a handicapped child in there, and Sandy took her around his arms all the time. It was such a loving moment. We have pictures of him also on that webpage. So my heart was broken to hear it. He was a great Jew. It was a great loss to our people. Sandy and I were on the same page in many issues around the work we volunteered to do. And may his memory serve as a blessing and guide for future generations and all people who will come in contact with his memory for years to come.
Amen. Amen. I have this slideshow ready, Shoshana Leeder.
Okay, you got it?
I do have it, and I think you said you wanted to introduce it first, yes?
Yeah.
Your camera's not on yet. There you are.
Press a button, it goes away. What do you want? Okay, so during one of my surgeries, I spent my time digitizing quite a bit of our family pictures. A project to put them back in the albums is still on my agenda. That's okay. But I went through and just pulled a little bit, some of the pictures. I kind of, in my attempt to make this slideshow, it got rearranged and all the pictures got out of order. So hopefully I've sort of taken a few minutes and gotten them into somewhat a chronological order. But, it's hard for me to talk about, but I'll make an attempt. So in my years of attempting to encapsulate my father, I think actually today, one of the best things I heard was a shooting star. And I think that really encapsulates who he is, shining bright and strong for everybody to see, and then you fizzle out. And I think that's how we all feel, is that we just saw this beautiful shooting star and we're left wondering where he went. But my dad was born January 24th, 1943, in Washington Heights, actually, not Brooklyn, Washington Heights. As he'll say, when the movie Washington Heights came out, that he was born there. He didn't live there for very long. And he would call his story getting out of Brooklyn. And he has said that many, 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 many times. His life goal was to get out of Brooklyn. And you may smile and laugh at this, And his reply to you would be, no, really, getting out of Brooklyn, you don't understand. He recounted so many times in his life how Brooklyn wasn't a place he wanted to be, that his mother came from Boston to New York City and struggled, and in a life of World War II and post-World War America with rations and high fear and anti-Semitism and gang violence, his mother was constantly nervous, constantly. Sophie, thank you. His mother responded by always just being nervous, and his brother, and every time they went around the neighborhood, she always was asking them where they were going, who they were with, whether they're going to be safe. That was his mother's response to World War II America, and his father's response was sending them to yeshiva. And it might sound as stark as you can imagine, but his father said many, 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 many times, if the Nazis are going to kill you, you should know why. And so they were sent to the yeshiva, and my father said he was almost like a Goya, this Goyish kid who had never, ever, ever spoke a bracha in his life. And all the other Jews looked at him, and they were the odd men out. And he was a foreigner. They thought he was a foreign spy with red hair. They had never seen anybody like this before. And so, you know, his response to that experience of getting there and being the odd man out was to devote himself to his studies, to be better than the other students. And his brother said, not for me, I'm out, you do it. I don't want to do it. So they took two different approaches to being behind in school. One was never to catch up, and one was to excel beyond belief. And I think we saw that throughout his studies, whether he believed in God or Jewish law, he was curious and adventurous and wanted to know more. But in that experience, he never quite fit in. You know, he said many, many times, I didn't know where I belonged, and I'm always looking for where my home is. And I think that shaped a lot of his work with the Jewish people and helping them find a home. He found a home in Israel, and that was really beautiful for him. And you know, I think to know a lot about my dad is to know a little bit about his family. Like I said, he was born in Washington Heights to Sophie and Arthur Leeder. They owned a tax and insurance company. They worked every day. My father recounts just how much his family worked. And he recounts the family's push cart in Brooklyn, where he will tell you the story that his family was the first, his grandfather was the first man to make the malted milk and the egg creams. And there was a story in New York Times that came out about the egg creams and the malted milks. And my father said, that's our story. Whether somebody else was doing it down the street as well, maybe that's true, but we were making these push carts where they kind of figured out if we freeze the milk ahead of time, we can make twice as much money. So I'm not sure it came from just wanting to enjoy a nice fresh egg cream. It had some ulterior motives. But you know, I think as my dad progressed in school, he was always searching for ways to find and create meaning. He was curious about the world. One day in high school, he was reading about National Geographic about the lost Jews in Africa, and he found this so interesting that when he indeed went to the Peace Corps, he said, I have to find them. Turns out he was on the completely opposite side of the continent. He did not know that, but he constantly was just searching and observing and looking for these lost Jews. Turns out, you know, he was a pivotal force in helping them to be not lost and identifying who they are. And, you know, when my dad went to the Peace Corps and everybody was in these drafts, and he would say that some people were dodging the draft and all these things, and he'll tell the story about how the reason he was able to go to the Peace Corps and, you know, get a deferment for his studies was that he went to the same office that Donald Trump went to. He'll say that the two of them were sent to go do other things and not to war. He said that guy didn't have flat feet. He was just in a place where they had a lot of other people, and they were in Brooklyn, and there was a lot of diversity, and they didn't need this Jewish white guy. And so they sent him to do other things and study. And he didn't want to fight in a war. He didn't think he had a right to be fighting and that we didn't need to be there. And so, you know, when he went and served in the Peace Corps, he felt that he was actually doing something meaningful. And many people will recount the pictures of him with Martin Luther King and say he was marching and what a great thing. And I think in our family, we know many of the true stories is he kind of hitched a ride to go to a fun party when his brother couldn't go. His brother was often doing civil rights, and he was involved in Harper College and at the radio station, and you know, getting lots of Black musicians to be played, but his life wasn't civil rights. And he often says, you know, the pictures that were taken, he not that he was embarrassed to show people, but he didn't want to be known for something that wasn't his own accomplishment. He didn't want to be known for just being celebritizing Martin Luther King and having a picture saying I was there and I was at this thing. And so he didn't talk about it until after he went to Africa and helped with the AEJ and rescued this mission. And he said, I finally felt like I had done something worthy enough on my own merits, where I could sit next to him and I could talk about his accomplishments without trying to gain something from it, that he felt like he had a deserving to be able to have that picture up, which my friends would know. I didn't know that we had smaller versions of it in a 2x4, but I used to take the picture off the wall every Martin Luther King, you know, for Martin Luther King Day, and I'd bring it and present to school and show about my father and how ridiculous I was carrying this giant picture that came off of our living room wall. But we were all proud of him. And we had a hard time when he went to Israel because we missed having him around. But we love and support him so much and know that the Jewish people and Israel is his homeland, and having my father be able to live out the rest of his life in a way that was meaningful to him just meant everything to me to support that. With all the ways that he supported our family, I think that it felt like this is the least we could do, is allow him to be in a place that he loved so much. And really showing us that when you want something in your life and it's important to you, you've never missed your opportunity. And it always comes back around to do important things. And staying true to yourself is really just so meaningful. And we can see everybody on this Zoom who he touched and wanted him a part of their life. And he wanted to be a part of everybody's life. And I hope when you look through some of the pictures, you see such a person full of life that sometimes I say, you know, I don't think I have 1/10 the energy at 34 that my father did at 75, at 65, at any part of his life, being so full of life. And so as it's been difficult to watch him decline, I think what we've seen is that even till the bitter end, he fought in a way that nobody quite understood. And it didn't make sense to anybody how he had such strength, even at the end when his body was compromised, that his spirit could be so ruthlessly fired, that there was a fire inside him that kept him alive. And I think we're all touched and appreciative that he entered our life. And I said to my father, he's set us up for a beautiful life. And I think that that's the truth in everything that he's done, is he's set everybody up for a beautiful life, and in a way that he wants everybody to excel and succeed and carry his spirit. But he doesn't want you to say you knew Sandy Leeder and celebritize. He wants you to do something meaningful where you can go and say that I took in his idea of spirit
And I'm not just wanting him, I take him in me and I do something with it. And I wish I had gotten to print my dissertation, but I dedicated it to my mother, my father, for doing good things in the world and inspiring us every day to keep going. And my father would say, you know, he did crazy things with taxes and law, and he appreciated my mother and the people who were hands-on and helped people every day. Every day. You know, he loved that she brought life into the world, and he wanted people to live in a way that was meaningful. And so I think, you know, again, as we look at these people from afar and we hold on to their spirit, we really need to know that his goal wasn't to stop. His goal was to keep going and to keep helping with Kulan, or to keep with the Jewish people, to extend, you know, tikkun olam in maybe the highest form of the world. And so doing good for the world. And my father, I think, you know, as I sort of summarize the end of, before you look at this video that we went through, he wanted to get out of Brooklyn, and that is everything. Getting out of Brooklyn, getting out of that neighborhood, getting out of the life. And I talked to him about if he had stayed, and he said, you know, I would have worked for my father and been such a good child and ran the business and been successful and maybe had a family there and a life. But I would have been in Brooklyn. I wouldn't have gotten out. And him getting out of Brooklyn is everything. Getting out of Brooklyn to Africa, getting out of Brooklyn to California, back to Israel, getting out of Brooklyn. And as he sat in Sfat and he looked at his beautiful view, and I said, Dad, this could be anywhere. And he said, but it's not. It's not anywhere. It's here. And that's where he wanted to be. And so we will visit him in his home in Sfat, and his home in Berkeley and California and Brooklyn and Washington Heights and all over the world. And my goal for each of you is to get out there, see the next eclipse, experience beauty in a way you've never done, and you've never missed your opportunity to do good things in the world. So, you know, I appreciate my siblings and my family, and Ray has been there caring for my father, and Sarah leading our way, and Lorelei helping support us, and so many people have touched his life. It's almost unfathomable. So I hope you guys look through it. My video music syncing won't be there, but think of the Beatles and What a Wonderful Life, and Louis Armstrong, and I would say Shlomo, not my favorite, but my father's all time, and incorporate that music and some African drumming as you watch the video, instead of Apple Music's whatever they put. But I hope you can kind of see, just as his life progressed, a little bit of who he was. Yeah. He couldn't sing, and I hope you guys will sing in his honor. So with that, I'll let Lorelei play the video, and I'll also, I can email a little blurb that Joel wrote, who's one of his old-time friends, and we're sad that he couldn't be here today, but getting a little bit more of a full spirit of who my dad was in every context of his life. So.
Thank you, Shoshana. I am gonna just let you guys know, please stay on the Zoom call as long as you want. I'm going to keep this open because I know many, many people have what to say about Sandy. If you are able to, we welcome you. And I see that Akiva Leeder has somehow made it to a computer. He just traveled from Israel. I know that we will want to hear from him. He was with Sandy at his last days and moments. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and we can watch the slideshow together. Can you hear it?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, you want to say something?
Okay.
That was beautiful.
Well, I hope you guys really enjoyed that time capsule almost. Yeah.
That's awesome, Shoshana. So awesome. Mwah. Bless you, sweetie.
That was so
Um,
wonderful.
Shoshana, can I get his parents' name for a prayer I'm about to chant?
Yeah. Was it Shifra is his and Arthur is well, someone had Asher, but I had his Avraham.
My name's David.
David, we have to get it, but his Hebrew name is Shmuel Lev Bat Shifra.
Okay, I'll just go with Asher Avraham for now. We'll get it all in.
Mine, Shoshana, that's actually mine.
So
Your name is from your grandfather.
So I'd like to, Lorelei, if you could find a copy, or Jonathan, a copy of the Kaddish. I'm first going to chant
I have that.
another prayer. I'm going to chant El Mali Rachamim, which is perhaps not traditional to do at a Shiva as it is at the funeral, but
I'll put up the
a lot of us
Kaddish
couldn't,
on
a lot of us couldn't make it to the funeral, and it speaks of holding Sandy being held under the wings of the Shekinah. And this is something that we all want to imagine. What it is that we imagine is what we create in the world. What we see and feel is what energizes a vision, energizes a reality. And as Shoshana said, I so completely agree that it is our job as loved ones to carry on his work in the world, which is impossible for any one of us to do because his work spanned so much and he was in the business of saving lives. We can make the world with our words and we can break hearts with our words. So let us, in the spirit of this great man, speak kindly to people who need a little bit of uplift and give tzedakah whenever we can. And if all we have is a smile for someone, and to give them a radiant smile and to feel Shmuel Lev shining through from our hearts through our eyes out into the world. And in this way, we can bring Mashiach, we can bring the Messiah here in this time. El male rachamim shochen bamromim chamtze menucha nechonatachet kahan fecha shchina b'malot kedoshim urhorim kezohar harakiach mazirim Et Nishmat Shmulev Ben Shifra Asher Avraham Arthur Anu Baal Shelolamo Bagan Eden Tehe Menuchato Anna Baal Harachamim Hasti Rehu Beseter Kanafecha Leolamim Utror Bitror Hachaim Et Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato Veyanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkan Vovenomar Amen. O divine Elohim, whose fullness is compassion, this one dwelling on high, grant perfect peace, serenity, joy, ebullience, music, song, dance, and peace under the wings of your presence. In the holy and pure heights, like the heaven's radiant splendor, to the soul of Sandy, Shmulev, Shifra, V, Arthur, Asher, Avraham, who has gone on his way but will stay in touch, will keep some love here for us and wrapped around all of us and curl around our hearts and embrace us whenever you are in need of bracing. These are the arms, the fingers, the lips, the heart, the joy, the words that will uplift you. Just be still. Ask him to come. He will comfort you in your sorrow and help you in your endeavors. Let Gan Eden be his portion, please. O divine source of compassion, protect him in the cover of your presence forever. May his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life as it is. May the divine be his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us say together, we say, Amen.
Amen.
Andy said he didn't believe in God, and sometimes
Amen.
Diane and I would talk
God
about,
believed in
why
him.
he's hanging on, and it was like, well,
Amen.
he doesn't believe in God. He doesn't know how good it is where he's going.
God believes in him. Yeah.
You don't have to believe in God to work with God and experience God. He just worked with God. He didn't have to believe.
Work with God.
And when we studied
God
Torah,
believed in him.
he loved to, he spread God in the world, whatever he called it. He loved to study from a book that in different colors had where different parts of the Torah had come from, whether it was from the prophets. He was doing a historical study of, the kings and the prophets and where all the different things that came together to make the Torah work. And he had such joy in studying and in doing this. And there's one very funny story that one day we were studying together and we were studying about the red heifer, and I said, oh, you know what I figured out? Or not what I figured out, but if you mix up, you would take the red heifer and you would do a sacrifice and you would add water, and when people had sinned, they would be washed a little bit in this water. And I said, well, the ashes of an animal and water make lye soap. So basically, they're washing people in soap. And he just had so much delight in that. I know he passed it on to someone who wrote a poem about it, and he talked about it, and there were so many exchanges that we had like that, and he had so much joy and so much depth and so much dignity that I'm so glad that all of you who are here could have known him.
I think the story of the red heifer is important to know. It was a really important story for my dad's
Did you just disappear, Shoshana?
Shoshana, your microphone is off.
Well,
Okay, she just lost her microphone. I don't know if she
well,
realizes
when she
that.
comes back, somebody write her in the text. Maybe she'll see that.
Okay, wait, now she's coming back. Hold on. There's a lot of activity in the participant bar. Shoshana, are you back?
I got booted out.
Okay, there you are.
There we are.
You were saying the story of the red heifer was important to him, as it would be to anyone in your family.
The story of the red heifer.
Somebody else has their microphone on in your room, Shoshana, so that's making it echo.
The story of the red heifer is actually very interesting to my father, and kind of the getting into the behind the scenes. And this is going to sound funny, but I got introduced to the story of the red heifer from watching the movie Fight Club. And I was watching this movie and I was watching this, and I went to my dad and I said, you know, Dad, I saw this movie and it had the most interesting scene where, if anyone's seen it, as crude as this sound, he says, we steal the fat from people and then we sell it right back to them in the most expensive soap. And I was sitting there watching this, and he goes, that's the story of the red heifer. With the fat at the top, with the burning and the bodies, and the fat that's being dissolved in the water is actually in the river as people are washing. And he extrapolated so nicely to modern day that these stories are still going on, that if you think it's not happening, and the way that things are created and the Talmudic story behind it is just as important, and it can relate to today, even if it doesn't quite make sense to you. But I'd like to take a moment, and my dad's, you might have seen a picture of him in Africa as he's in the Peace Corps. And Joel has been a very, very, very long time friend of my dad's, who's unfortunately having surgery today, who should be okay. But many years ago, he wrote us a story recently about my dad and his memories, but I actually had saved from many, many years ago, my dad, Joel, telling about what's up with Sandy, his longtime friend. And so this is actually from a few years ago, but this is Joel's kind of story. And so I'll just read it. It's about a page. It said, what's up with Sandy Leeder? Some of you have asked me, what's up with Sandy Leeder? Now, I usually grant such casual inquiries a casual answer and reply that Sandy's living much of his time in Spot, or northeastern Galilee, with occasional returns to Berkeley to straighten out family or financial crises, or other fun things in the States. But of course, what's up with Sandy Leeder can also be taken up questioning the fundamental mystery of why I've been intimately linked to Stuart Leeder for more than 48 years. And this is Joel Newberg, that many people know. There were lots of people stationed together who said goodbye after Peace Corps and seldom seen since. Think Lewis and Clark. At least part of the answer has to do with drugs. My first vision of Leeder encompassed only his legs from the knees down. There must have been 20 of us in a tiny room in Sylvania Hotel in Philadelphia, late in March of 1967, when Sandy entered, bellowing, "Okay, who's got the dope?" From my point of view on the floor with my arms around Sammy Dean, all I saw were his wingtip shoes, his spring striped pants, and the motorcycle helmet dangling from his fist. Coming as I did from 3 years of civil unrest in Berkeley, my first thought was FBI. I rolled under the bed, dragging Sammy with me, but as those of you who know him realize, Sandy was only seeking someone to share. In Peace Corps training, most of us we argued politics, religion, economics, and I don't think we agreed on anything. I was quite happy he did field training in Dominica while I got to train in Anguilla, and in the somewhere around some whorehouse with Rich and Wendy or Margaret or Jane and Gail, or maybe some guy who had been in Niger for a while and didn't think to argue. Jack Saunders met up with them, who's a good friend of theirs, and nobody even asked me, what's up with Jack Saunders? Well, he still lives in Shasta and gave a good reply. Couple of grandchildren, but everybody always asked, what's up with Sandy Leeder? The last couple of years together, we did lots of crazy things in our service, volunteered.
And every time Sandy upped the assurance that Sandy and I could get along with each other, and we lived for a few months. And in his time in Peace Corps, and Joel didn't write this, but in his time in Peace Corps, my dad saved Joel quite a few times when he had dengue fever. And people would ask, actually, my dad, what's up with Joel in the village? And he would reply, what do you mean, what's up with Joel? And they'd say, something's wrong with your boy. You better go get him. And my dad recounts hopping on a horse, traveling to a couple of different towns and going and rescuing him. Now, there's many, many stories that Joel has, but the most important thing that Joel writes is, I think it was in fact that he was almost exactly my brother's age that contributed to me falling in love with Sandy Leeder. After an afternoon of Sandy using a basketball, a soccer ball, a Petromex lantern to explain the phenomenon of a solar eclipse to a disinterested middle schooler, we stayed up all one summer night while Sandy coaxed enough of us to chill out our kerosene refrigerator and make the ice needed for his grandfather's recipe, quote, the first man in Brooklyn to make malted milk. We talked about fathers. His died not long before while Sandy waited in the hallway outside in the hospital room, and he still thought he should have done something to save him. Joel's mine was soon to come visit, and through a variety of misunderstandings of Sandy's Brooklyn accent, came to be known as my fada, spoken to the chief. We talked about brothers and his and mine. We talked about the Jews. I believe I have regaled his gathering with the tales of how Leeder guided me through hallucinogenic experiences and acid trips where I saw visions of absent longed for lovers and equine skeletons. We seem to have quite a bit of spare time while serving our country at the edge of the Sahara. But I thought I would tell you about Sandy's first day in California, the last week of July in 1969. Sandy came to see me at 1909 Delaware in Berkeley. I celebrated by dropping acid. I don't want you to get the impression that this was some kind of 60s acid head, that's all we did. I think my total experiences with that drug number in less than the fingers on one hand, but apparently Leeder inspired a chain of recklessness or confidence in me. What could possibly go wrong with God's name, Leeder? On the scene. There were 3 or 4 of us in the living room, and we soon ventured into the sunroom. I remember seeing Sandy's brother, David. Only David and I called him Binky for the first time. His flaming red Jufro, like a saint's halo, and shafts of gold shooting into the blue sky, a fit sibling for God's name. At some point in our journey, I leaned up against the corner of the public no. My hand sung. These are the things I remember about being with Sandy. And again, it's not as if that's all we did, but our fortunes were intertwined. We had tarot cards, palm readings, and all to this day, I don't know how, but we managed to be together. I can't remember her name of who told us that we had destined to be together, but she nailed it. In spite of years of strife, I would soon be looking for true love and happiness with others. Sandy had his. There's a lot more things that Joel says, and mostly at the end of the story, he says that he is my brother.
Oh man, beautiful, Shoshana.
If anyone has more stories, you could post them on Sandy's Facebook page or here in the chat. On the Facebook
we have a
page,
couple of
we can share them. I know we have a couple more people who would like to
have some more raised hands. Yeah,
I know. I just, before anybody else left, I wanted to invite you to post whatever it is you have on his Facebook page, so that the family can read them. And if you have more pictures, I do, to put them there so the family can see them. I do want to say Kaddish soon, and I know people have to leave. So, Lorelai,
has great.
and then let some more people.
Lorelai ought to say something too if she has a chance.
I'm sorry, there was overlapping talking, so I couldn't hear.
2 questions. One is, Lorelai, we're waiting for you to speak as well.
Okay.
You have amazing stories.
Thanks, Jack. And that a few other people still want to speak, and we want to say Kaddish. So my question was, shall we say Kaddish before anyone else leaves?
Why don't we say Kaddish? So because time is ticking by, but please let's, whoever can, stay around for more. And I don't know who DM IPP 2019 is, who's a guest, who has his or her hand raised, but we want to hear from you after Kaddish, and also Debbie and Barry Barkin have their hands raised, and I have.
How do you raise a hand?
Hi, Yehudi, just on the controls, the reactions that lets you raise a hand on the controls down there.
Yehudi, we can just know you're in the queue.
Yeah, so I'm gonna put the Kaddish up on the screen if you'll just all bear with me, okay?
While you do that, I'm going to read. Well, there it is. Okay. But before we say Kaddish, Marge Piercy's poetical reworking of the Kaddish has spoken to me. But since Sandy died, and a lot of you know, I've had 6 of my very closest friends pass in the last 4 months. So I'm feeling like the veil is very thin. I loved all these people dearly, but for some reason, Sandy's passing has rocked my world. Because as I told my kids, whenever times were low, whenever I felt bereft or whatever, I could think, you know, Sandy loves me. If I feel like nobody else in the world is here for me right now, I know Sandy loves me. And that's an incredible gift. And I know that goes on. But what I came to with this reading, this beautiful piece that Marge Piercy wrote, which I'm going to read in just a moment, is that we are all bound together, as she says in this piece, in a golden web of being joined together. And in studying the spiritual work that I do, I know that we have things passed down to us from thousands of years ago of our forefathers and foremothers who have lived, and the soul work and the relationships that in our soul groups we've taken different ones on. I can only wonder what mine was in past lives with Sandy, but in our body, in our DNA, in the love that created us, and the love that created the world, because all things are created in love, because that is the essence of what the divine is. It has created the earth on which we stand, and the earth from which we are made, and the earth to which we return. And the golden light of that love, which reaches back millennia to the sparks that became more sparks, that became more sparks, that the love that was transmitted from human to human so that children and grandchildren were born, is what has created us in these times so long ago, and goes to make us up now. Just as Sandy loved to study the stars and the cosmos and took so much delight, it was as if he was looking back on our ancient history, coming toward us and becoming part of our bodies, in the body of YISRAEL and in the body of being human. That it created not only our DNA, but our neshamas. It created our hearts. It created the openings and the magic and the sparkle that allowed us to look into the eyes of another and to take that person on as friend, and as someone we supported and helped to live, and as someone who supported us and helped us to live. And so Sandy is so wound up in this integral pattern of life that it's hard to breathe, knowing he's gone, and yet a deeper breath must be taken in, and a deeper breath of his good works and his mitzvot and his joy and his dance for us all to express in the world. Look around us, search above us, below, and behind. We stand in a great web of being joined together. Let us praise, let us love the life we are lent, passing through us in the body of Israel and our own bodies, and let us say Amen. Time flows through us like water. The past and the dead speak through us. We breathe out our children's children's blessings. Blessed is the earth from which we grow. Blessed the life we are lent. Blessed the ones who teach us. Blessed the ones we teach. Blessed is the word that cannot say the glory that shines through us and remains to shine, flowing past distant suns on the way to forever. And let us say Amen. Blessed is light, blessed is darkness, but blessed above all else is peace, which bears the fruits of knowledge on strong branches, and let us say Amen. Peace that bears joy into the world, peace that enables love, Peace over Israel, all humankind, over all the cosmos, everywhere, blessed and holy is peace. And let us say Amen. As we say the Kaddish together, please rise if you wish, or rise in your chair as we praise this glory that Sandy so personified in the world. Yit Gadal, V'yit Gadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'yalma Divrach Herutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, V'chayachon Uvyamechon Uv'chaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala V'zman Kariv V'yimru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam U'almei Almaya. Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar V'yitalev V'yitalal, Shemei Kudsha B'richu. La'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbachata V'nechemata Da'amiron B'yalma V'yimru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu V'yal Kol Yisrael V'yimru Amen. Is there more? Say shalom. I say shalom bimramav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen.
Amen.
So I'd like to ask the Goldfarbs to speak next. They were at the hospital with Sandy so many days toward the end, and I was very happy. They told me that the ice cream that Sandy wanted on his birthday, I told my daughter, she called her husband who was in Tel Aviv, who's a nurse, and he called the hospital in Sfat and saw to it that Sandy got his ice cream.
Not true.
And Yehudit said,
Didn't you buy it?
and Yehudit said that was his last name. Anyway, I hand it over to the Goldfarbs.
Ray knows the truth of the ice creams, but
Yeah,
that was his
it was
last
well
name.
intended.
Anyway, I don't know what I want to say. Let everybody speak first.
I think you should tell everyone how, when Sandy landed in Sfat, you found him his house and his attorney.
That's right. That's right.
Within
His
1
story.
minute of each other.
As soon as we saw him, our house, we lived across from a place that we knew was up for rent and was wheelchair accessible. And,
More or less.
And so as soon as the first thing I said to him when I saw him, I was giving him a hug, I suppose. And then I said, and this house would be really good for you.
This is your house.
This is your house.
2 minutes later, the attorney who lives down the block, who helped us get our house and get do stuff with us. I said, and this is, the attorney could be the house.
And that was Shmuel Treaster.
And some of the things about Sandy was this house was maybe desirable and had been up for sale for a long time, but it had a leak that no one could figure out where it was from.
Right.
And it was like this, it wasn't dependent on rain. There was water coming in the bottom area and nobody could figure it out. Sandy managed to figure it out after he bought it. He managed to figure it out. It was the toilet of the neighbors, which overlapped the bottom of his house and was fixed. And that's now known as Mystic Mountain Pub. And anyway, I don't know what to say. I got a clear message after my first visit to the hospital. I guess that was probably on his birthday, the 24th, which was my granddaughter's Hebrew birthday. And I massaged his feet. I mean, I saw from outside the room when we weren't allowed to go into the ICU, his toes were wiggling. I could see his bare toes out of the sheets and he kept wiggling his feet and his toes. So when I went in, I was at the foot of the bed and I just put my hands on and started massaging. And he was so grateful for that. And I was so grateful to be able to give him something that it was an unbelievable connection. And when I left, I got a very clear message: as much as I can get down there, I'm going to be down there because I can do something for him. And besides find a house and his lawyer.
Eternal
And
home.
and that was one of the most beautiful gifts that he's given me in his whole life, besides all the other things he's done. And I see it like this. David Din came to the Minyan, like, I don't know, umpteen years ago, and told us that God asked for sacrifices in the temple because God knew that the best way to create love between people was to give a space for them to give. Open the space and allow them to give to you. And I feel now that Shmuel Lev in his last days, the giver and the generous man he was, he learned to open in those days. I mean, it wasn't so easy at first, but he learned to open, to receive. And it just opened a space for all of us in the community to pour out our love to him. And it's beautiful, it's beautiful. And there's an amazing amount of love in this community. And I just feel it's increased 100-fold. And people would call me all these beautiful names for going to the hospital all the time. That was the magnet. It was totally like he was a total magnet for me, just to know I could help some way, and wanted to help. And the love kept growing and keeps growing. And I still feel it. And contrary to other people's perception, I have odd perceptions. There was a day there, I think it was Monday or Tuesday before he passed away. I think it was even when Akiva got there on Tuesday.
That's right, Tuesday.
But I don't know which day it was. I just remember trying to tap in at some level to his soul to see if he was ready to go, whether he felt balanced. And I had this very clear feeling that his soul came out from around his eyes and forehead, temporarily fluttered, and then came zooming back in. But it was basically saying, I'm kind of ready to go, but not quite. I haven't finished all my business here. But it was like really clear that my time is close.
Yep.
And back in to do what I have to do in order to finish whatever balancing I have to do before I can really let go. And I think, when word came about the COVID, it was like he'd already been through COVID by that point, in effect, when he got tested. And the night that he went into the COVID ward, before he went there were many of us in the community did special healing work with him. And I don't think he had it by the time he went into the ward. It was a matter of, he just had a way of seeing Ray Malka. Now she could come and see him and be with him. And that balancing could happen. And Akiva was there, and he had already seen him outside the COVID ward, but now he had just had his closest people visiting him. And he's a continuing gift. And I also say, in contrary to what some people have said, I feel he and Hashem had this conversation. Okay, how can I get Ray Malka there? How can I have everything work right so Akiva could actually be here for the funeral, be here for a little of the Shiva, and get home to his family? And he worked miracles to do that. He and Hashem, and it was a partnership. He may not have believed in God, but they were partners. And you can all, I think, attest to that and so many things in his life. Yep. He'll be great being missed, but I think with all the missing, it's just appreciating that we lived here in this lifetime to be with him, and that we particularly here in Sfa, I mean, we've known him since 81 in the Berkeley area. And he came to be with us here in Spot. I feel very special. And the other thing was, I haven't seen him much in the last 2 years, and particularly in the last year, he hasn't necessarily wanted visitors. And I've always felt like I didn't know if I could reach out or not to him. And him being in the hospital brought in that whole 2 years of waiting to see him again and be with him. So I feel that also was part of this gift that he gave me personally to fill up, so I feel very full and very blessed and very, just the gifts are enormous that I'm getting right now from him and from everybody.
To say briefly, Sandy was a student of the Torah. And I think if I would channel Sandy for a second and say, what is it you would like, you would have me do? I'd say, you should really know what's in the Torah. Our group made a marathon. We were a Parsha study group. We met every Shabbat, originally at David and Miriam Friedman's, and then at our house. And so we would study the Parsha. We would never be able to finish the Parsha. When the next week, it was the next another Parsha. So there was a lot of stuff we never actually got to the end of. We couldn't always remember where we had ended the previous week. At one point, one of our members, Daniel Flathart, said, why don't we study the other parts of the Tanakh? After all, we're living in Israel now. The other books, it ends before we enter the land. We've entered the land. Why don't we learn what else happened to us after we got here? So we thought about it for a week and we said, okay, let's do it. And we proceeded to study this way, beginning with Joshua. No matter how much we got done in a day, in an hour and a half of study, we didn't miss anything, because the next week we'd go on to the next section, a chapter, 2 chapters, 3 chapters. Took us 7.5 years to complete the whole thing. And we learned a lot about the kings, the terrible kings and the few good ones, and Israeli politics and regional politics going back thousands of years that are still like headlines in today's papers. So it was a huge benefit, and it opened our eyes to a lot of things that we should have known but didn't yet. So I would say, if Sandy, would you have any advice? Well, what should I learn? What should I study? You should study the Tanakh. Find out what happened after we got to the land. Now that you're in the land, there's a history unfolding, and there's echoes of the past in it. And the story about the fat and the ashes, he brought that up before our teacher, Yitzhak Haviv. I remember very well. He had done some thinking at home, and he brought it in. He wanted to know from Yitzhak, who was a really authoritative Talmud teacher. I was thinking about the red ashes, the red heifer. There was the ashes, and there was the animal fat, and then there was the. I think it's soap.
That's right.
And Yitzhak says, yes, it is soap. See, I knew it. It meant a lot to him to have figured it out and then get it confirmed by an authority. That's all I have to say. Have a great night.
I just want to say a few words. I think it's fitting for me to follow the golden bars because I've made it home. That's amazing. I can be with my family now. It's a whole other part of the ordeal. But first of all, I need to give so much credit to the Gold Barbs. They hosted me. They were my everything, especially Yehudi, who chauffeured me, was with me at every hospital visit. Just really amazing. I can't thank you enough for your hospitality and your warmth that you showed me and my father. One thing I just wanted to say, a lot of people, oh, my dad didn't believe in God. And what I would say to that is, I think that might be too surface level. And the way I would describe my father is he is a Golda Meir Jew. And when she was posed the question, do you believe in God? What she said is, I believe in the Jewish people and the Jewish people believe in God. And that's how she explained it. And I feel like that description is very apt for my father. And it's not that, I think the crux is not that with God, it's the word with belief, the word belief. And it's not for my father, and he struggled with this. There's one thing he struggled with in Sfat, is everyone in Sfat is so spiritual, so holy, and so wanting to learn and grasp everything. And he said, you got to be careful in Sfat because people say everything and everyone's quick to believe everything. And my father is not quick to believe everything. He wanted to verify it for himself. So it's not that he didn't believe in God. Well, maybe the belief is the word. He struggled with it and he wanted to learn and to know more. And that is the legacy that everyone should take away from it. Because any other description is just far too simplistic. That's really what I wanted to say to everyone. I said, I spoke at his funeral, and I'm glad I was there for the last few days. And I know that he was comforted that I could be there. And the whole week was an incredible week, and I'm just thankful that he held on, and I was able to be by his side at first in his room, and then in the COVID ward. I think his last gift to me was, I think he gave me COVID, but I was in a bit of denial and didn't want to know for sure so I could attend the funeral and everything else. and getting out of Israel was kind of hairy because I was still showing a little bit positive on these home tests, and they're finicky. Who knows? Are they reliable? Are they not? And then Yehudit and I went to Tiberias to one of these kiosks, these testing kiosks, and this, I was like, I was sure that this was going to show up, and I was going to quarantine, and who knows what was going to happen. I couldn't get home to be with my family who needed me desperately, and I'm checking my results, and I see it was negative. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I show Yehudit, and we kind of just celebrated. It was so amazing, and I'm like, I had to understand like what happened. So I went back to the kiosk lady, and she says, you were borderline, and it seemed like you were coming out of it, so I just put in negative. And I was like, wow, this woman had no idea what she had done for me. And I'd like to think that it was my father had a hand in that from beyond, because it was really causing me a lot of stress, and the idea that I would be stuck. I would have been surrounded by a beautiful community, and the whole community in Sfat was just amazing. And this past week, I really got to understand at a visceral level, like what my dad loved about that place. It's not just the physical soil. Yes, it's important to be in Israel, but it's the people. It's the people. And he always stressed that it's the people that make the community, and the Sfat community.
Can I say something? Can I add on to what you said?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'm Akiva's wife, Amanda, and
Oh, there you are.
Nice to meet you, Amanda.
hi.
Thank you for the.
Thanks for taking care of him. It was really a special experience for him, and I just wanted to add that Sandy was like one of the most loyal people that I knew. Like loyalty was so important to him, and he never wanted Akiva to come out there, really, because he was like, why are you coming out? Like it wasn't for a good reason, but he was like, why aren't you, like, you need to be with your family. That's where you need to be, So it was really just at the very end that he was, like Yehudit said, like willing to accept these gifts, And that's also why I didn't feel so bad being like, Akiva, please get home. It was so hard here. And I knew Sandy would want that. I do believe Sandy was looking over and had that woman say, who puts a negative test as a positive test as a negative? Like, it's amazing. Like, well, anyhow, so I knew that, like, he was just a very practical person, and loyalties were not something that you mess around with, and he's definitely given that to Akiva, and I'm very grateful for that, obviously. But I just wanted to say why I was being annoying, because Sandy would have wanted me to. That's
okay, we got it. Not your bad.
And the woman at the kiosk wasn't so far off. Since I've landed, I've taken 2 tests, and both of them have been negative. So it really was like a borderline situation. But
it's borderline covered. She said he's either going in there or either going out. We knew he was going out because the line that morning was so light you could hardly see it, and it had been darker the day before. So we knew it was okay, safe. It was 5 days. It was okay.
Yeah.
So from everything we had learned about it. So Baruch
Thank
Hashem.
God. Baruch Hashem.
Israel is a human place to be. Doctors, nurses, people understand what the human picture is, not just what the regulations are.
Yeah. I mean, even in the COVID ward, they had these rules. You had 1 visitor for 1 per day for a half an hour. And, we were explaining when I get there, I'm like, I'm his son, I need to get in there. And he's like, well, these are the rules, but it's Israel. So, we make exceptions. I'm like, okay. So I was able to, yeah. So it was very powerful.
Right. Well, it was great to have Akiva here, and we hope he'll come back with his family.
Yeah.
One thing I think everybody should know, Mom and Dad, what I was thinking about in this video slideshow is at one point I said, well, we're starting at the, with black and white, and we're going into color, and then the end of life, and you're going to see And I said, well, should I show the pictures at the end of my dad's life? And we said, well, yes, that's not who he is. And I actually think it's really important to know that one of my dad's goals in life, actual goals in life, because my father did not make it to a point where his beard turned white. My father's goal in life was to get to a point where his whole beard and everything turned white. And he said, if I can, that you shouldn't hate aging. You should be so thankful that you get to the point where your beard and your hair turns white and you can look back at the pictures that were in color. And so I think everybody should just remember that was like such an important part of him, to be the shining redheaded star. And yet his goal was to become a man that was aged enough to be all white and wise.
Well, let me share something. Many people were kind of like, oh, this is what Sandy looks like. I went to the hospital and he was so incredibly beautiful. And what he reminded me of Abraham Lincoln, because he had that gauntness that Abraham Lincoln had, and he had that little white beard, and he had a presence about him that was just, and I told him, you look beautiful, because he did. And I have many, many pictures that we will somehow figure out how to share with the technology, as well as the funeral speeches and stuff like that. So I'll get them out to family and for others who want to see them. But I just want to say that, it's like when you see a soul shine through, the physical body shines too and becomes beautiful no matter the shape and your expectations.
So true. I'm going to stick my head in here real quick and say this is the big circle come around, because I met Sandy when I was living in Israel. I knew the Sandy Leeder in Israel before I knew the Sandy Leeder in Berkeley, was part of the SWAT community. The first time I saw him was when I was walking down the stairs of the House in Love of Prayer in SWAT in the snow, trying not to slip and die. And Sandy was standing down in the snow in white with all the snow falling around. I think he might have been laughing at me, because he was definitely smiling, but there could have been also laughter, because I'm sure I was very awkwardly trying not to die at that moment. And we were part of the same wonderful, well, because I'm famous for slipping and falling in SWAT and breaking things. So that's why. And we were part of not only the same wonderful Anglo English speaking community in SWAT, the whole hover there, but we were, unindicted co-conspirators, because back in the day before legalized medical herbology was okayed in Israel, them among us that needed that medicine needed to get it there and have it have it ready for ourselves and others. And so there was an entire underground throughout back in those days, many, many years ago, that we found ourselves in common there. And then when I came to Berkeley, because my daughter had twins and made me a safta, and I needed a place to live, Sandy gave me the huge mitzvah of being able to live at the house at YOLO as a tenant, paying not even paying like $10 more than I was paying before to live in a garage, basically, when I was, trying to establish myself here. And he encouraged me to go back to school and get my master's degree. I lived in YOLO when I went to grad school in Jewish studies, and we blended our libraries, which was a kick. And I don't understand why people say he didn't believe in God, because what he didn't believe in was organized religion and hypocrisy and all the BS that goes with people who say that they are involved with God, but are really just involved with some kind of weird social thing going on that has nothing to do with God. He did not enjoy any of that, but what he did enjoy was the stories and the spirit behind that. And he loved, of course, everybody knows he loved Shlomo music, and he was very spiritual. So to me, and I used to when he and Ray would come to the house on YOLO. And I just have to back up and say, I had to live there under two conditions. One was to keep the kitchen kosher so that when Ray and Sandy came, they would be able to eat. So it was a kosher house.
Thank you.
I needed to
Thank
keep an eye
you.
out. I needed to keep an eye out on Shira and make sure that she was okay. And so that was my other job at YOLO, was just keeping an eye out on Shira, and also just being so involved with the Leeder family, and being the kind of a communicative, connective tissue and helping hand in some of the things in the world. Sandy and I have Torah study. Like, we would learn together every morning practically when he was there. Like, we would always be learning. We'd always be talking. We'd always be arguing. Sandy loved to argue for the sake of heaven.
That's right.
And there was many a conversation that went on. But I want to say what Rabbi Joe said several hours ago at this point about Sandy and his family. Sandy's concern for and love for his children and his family was his overall overarching trajectory. And every time he came to Berkeley, it was under some desperate need to make sure that all the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted, and that everything was taken care of. And at any point, at any time, like, he could be doing anything at any time, and just the thought of something with his family would just completely like overtake him. His total priority and his love and providing for all of you, which you're going to be all experiencing for the rest of your life, is such a gift to all of you. And I know that you all already know that, but you should just hear it again about, and never forget that he just gave up everything to make sure that everybody was okay. And that's just so huge. And not just in the family, in the whole wide world as much as possible. Before I stop, I would like to also say I was there at the fateful night at the Goldfarbs for Shabbos dinner, where Ray Malka and Sandy, when Sandy volunteered to take Ray Malka home because she had hurt her leg or her foot, as I recall. And that was the night that the big spark fire started sparking. I think they had known each other or met before, I'm pretty sure, and she'll probably say, but I was there that night with the Goldfarbs. And when they left, when Sandy took Ray home, and I looked at Yehudit and Reuven, and I just kind of, like, my eyebrows went up. I'm like, okay, good job. And I went downstairs because I lived in their cave womb at the time. So I was there at that point, and I've been very lucky to witness all of it. And just want to say also, Sandy forced me to go with them to the eclipse in 2017 by shaming me, because I was like, Sandy, if there's no bathrooms, I can't go. And he goes, Lorelei, I promise you there will be a bathroom, and I will make sure you have your own tent. And he did. I literally went to the eclipse under this duress of, like, I have to have my Jewish princess comforts, Sandy. I can't just like camp out in the middle of Oregon. And it was the most incredible experience of my life. And he was like, you can't call yourself a Jewish astrologer and not go to the eclipse.
Oh, that's a killing.
That's what he did. He I was like, no, don't make me, Sandy. Too many people, too much noise, too much this. He's like, and so I did. And it was the highest, the most Gavaldic thing ever of all time. I can never thank him enough for everything that he did for me in my life. I could spend hours talking about it, and I won't. I just want to say thank you for listening, and I love you, Sandy. I think who was next? There was a Seder was it DMIPP?
I saw Hannah Cohen.
Yes. Well, I put an order down a little bit a while ago.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. DMIPP.
DMIPP. We don't know your name. And you're muted. Can you hear us? Tell you you're muted because I see your little. Hello. Oh, Lorelai, you can't unmute him, can you?
I asked him to unmute, but I can't unmute him.
We can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know what to do because
We have to unmute him.
We
Oh, I
cannot.
can't. There's no such thing as unmuting. I just can ask him
That
to.
means he has to unmute his computer. He probably has the
We
button.
know.
All right, let's ask Barry and Debbie Barkin to speak while DM is
Let's
trying
send
to.
him a text.
All right, I will do that.
Write it on a piece of paper and hold it up to the screen.
That's right.
Brilliant.
Unmute yourself. It's not too many letters. You can do it. Make them big.
Barry and Debbie just went out of the room temporarily.
Okay.
Okay, so after that, I had Ray.
Maybe.
There's Barry.
Barry's back.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Barry, do you want to speak now? Everybody's
Yep, got out of Brooklyn, Barry Barkin. He left Brooklyn too, man.
Hey, I did too.
I did too.
My parents did too. And my
Barry, you
brother
want to?
too.
Barry, you want to speak now?
No, you can
Barry
take
from
the
Brooklyn.
kid, you can't take the Brooklyn out of the kid because there's a lot of good stuff that we got in Brooklyn. So much was said about Sandy, all of which is so beautiful and so true. So I just want to bless his whole family. I want to bless, first of all, I want to bless his neshama that already it should be in paradise because he certainly
got
certainly
it.
earned his there.
You should have me now, I think. You should have audio now. I would like to think.
Do I not have audio?
Audio, check 1 2, check 1 2.
Who's speaking?
I heard Barry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Who is speaking?
DMIPP is speaking. The one who couldn't unmute before.
Okay.
Yeah, that's me. I'm the moron.
Who are you?
David Allen Mall. I am a person of significance with life.
Are you on 2 devices? If you are, please shut one of them off.
Let's see if we get this. I think I've got you in terms of video. Do you have me in terms of audio? Check
Well,
1 2. Check 1 2.
Okay, so I'm sorry, you got your audio on in the middle of a blessing that our friend Barry Barkin was giving. So if you can just keep your audio on and let Barry continue, then we'll call on you next, okay?
Yes, by all means.
Thank you. Barry, please continue.
So I want to once again bless Sandy's neshama, the aliyah of his neshama, that it should be, that it is now in the highest place that he deserves, that he earned the right to sit in. And I want to bless all his family, that the legacy of Sandy's life live on in you in the strongest possible way. And that you all have the best possible health and the best possible joy and the best possible mazel on the merit of who he was and what he did and how he lived and how he loved you all. Amen.
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 Okay, so
Amen.
let's have you speak, Mr. DM, whose name I didn't hear. Can you say again, please?
David Moll, M-O-L-L.
Okay, David Moll. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have only come to, I never came to know Sandy personally, but to hear these stories of what an incredibly compassionate and driven soul he was, it really is quite inspirational. I spent a significant amount of time as a journalist in Los Angeles, having been born in Portland, but nevertheless, when you come across someone who is of such incredibly exceptionally driven passion, especially for the attention of others and for the rescuing of those that are in such peril, you can't come away with anything other than just complete inspiration. The impressions I've been getting by just simply sitting in on this call Right? It's been a profound blessing to hear of his work in the Peace Corps, to hear of his work throughout post-war Sudan and all of this. And it is absolutely phenomenal, and it's reflection, in my opinion, of the brilliance and soul, for want of a better word, in Shira. Her incredible compassion for those most in need, including myself.
Thank you for sharing.
Amazing. Thank you, man.
David Leeder, who is Sandy's brother, has something to say.
Please.
David, Elaine Leeder sent me a message that David is here and has what to say. So can we get him on? Is that David's iPad?
Abigail wrote to me.
Yeah,
Good.
you need to, Dad, you need to unmute.
Okay, here, hang on.
David Leeder, you need to unmute.
Here we go. What the heck? Check 1, 2, check.
David, can you unmute? You want us to pin you and you can sign? Well, David's figuring that out. Karen, Sarah Leah wanted to speak.
Good.
Karen, you want to go ahead? If you're there?
Yeah, I don't have much to say. I have mostly memories, and I'm just deeply saddened by Sandy not ever coming back here. So, I don't know what to say at this point. So thank you. Thank you for doing this as well.
Again, for those who are left, if you have pictures or stories, you can put them on Facebook and we can see them there. Or maybe they'll come on some other social media. So Sarah Leah, are you still there? And David, have you unmuted?
And unmute. Hi, everybody. I didn't necessarily want to talk. I just wanted to, I'm just so happy to be, not happy, but anyway, to hold on. There's someone here at my door. I'll have to come.
Something that hasn't been mentioned is that Sandy was on the board at Hochmat in its first iteration. He was the treasurer. He did a lot of work in a lot of communities. Who else wants to speak who's still here?
I believe Ray wanted to speak.
Of course. Ray? I'm not seeing Ray. Oh, there you are.
Here we are. Here we are. This has been one of the most extraordinary days of a week of days, because I am sitting Shiva here in Tzfat. And in our notice to the community, I pointed out that I am sitting Shiva as Akiva was for the first 2 days, which was a great gift to all of us, an inspiration and a realization that he indeed has created, with his holy wife of those years, Diane, the mother of his children, a legacy that will live on. And in the last days of suffering, it was clear that our beloved Shmuel Lev, Lev Shali, Shelanu, he worshiped his children because they were his continuity. I understood what karat meant, what cutting off of a generation meant. And for him, there was no question that he was not going to leave his children and his love in a way that will be sanctified and live on in a way that will be inspirational. So in these days, it is hard for me to feel such deep sorrow, except that it is incredibly balanced by such sweet inspiration and love that lives on in the most incredible manner. So there are many stories that I could pull through, but I know that Hashem has been with us since we met, and that is more than 10 years ago. And a decade, more than a decade. And I was delighted to know most of his lady friends before I knew that they were in any way connected to him. And hearing the stories, it is so clear that the powerful love that this man received was reflected back into so many good people. It was not just me who felt it, and so many others in the community here in Sfat. But it starts with his love for his children, which is unequivocal and unparalleled. But what I find it fascinating is when he would declare, "No, I don't believe in God." And in the same moment, God would present him with a gift, so that perhaps to say, well, maybe this will convince you. Well, the last kind of gift that was the way that God works in the dimension of time. The dimension of time, what we sometimes call coincidence, is really hashgacha pratis. This is our divine presence, our divine prescience. And he was the absolute reflector of that. He found his way into circumstances where he was prepared to be prepared for it. Like he would say over and over again, if I hadn't lived in a tent in the Niger, I could never have gone on this journey. I would not have had the skills. So all of his life, he saw himself preparing, and in some clear way, he actually really understood that there was no one leading him except Hashem. And the stories that came out from the teste, the gentleman who spoke at the funeral, and also Devorah Devry, our beautiful Devorah, and I don't even know if she's on. I tried to find her and pass on the message, but this is the next generation. These are also his children. And I'm sure that he was so grateful to see her, and she is now working on a master's that will document the role of the AEJAE. It's the American Association of Ethiopian Jews.
AAEJ.
Thank you. And there's no disputing that he was in a relationship like Moshe was in a relationship with Hashem. He argued with God, but only for the sake of something more important, something bigger than himself, and never for his own aggrandizement. He didn't even see it or feel it. He was a remarkable man. And listening to this during the Shiva and is such a gift to understand the magnitude and the pebble effect that he he is blessed to be blessed, to be blessed, to be blessed, to the be blessed, to be blessed, to the be the blesser who blesses. And all along, he who blesses greatest gift is to receive back the blessing. I could think of one charming story where I got COVID, and that meant that I couldn't visit him in the hospital in these critical days. And for 10 days, I struggled with the COVID. And finally, on the 11th day or the 10th day, the end of, I had my clear test, and I rushed to the hospital into his room only to find it empty. Well, what had happened, I found out, was that he had contracted COVID, but as he always said, I didn't sign anything. It may have been a contract, but it wasn't signed. Well, this was signed, and by the grace of God, I knew about the research in the COVID ward. And I came to the entry and waited to speak to the administrator. And they were talking with a gentleman, and his eyes caught mine. And I said, "Are you a doctor?" And he said, "Yes, I'm the department head." And I said to him, "Oh, you're doing the most extraordinary research on calcium amorphy. Isn't that so? And SVAT is one of the hospitals that is testing this premise." And he was, I think, a bit taken aback. And I introduced myself as Dr. Ray Fishman, and I had been writing for the Lancet, and he was delighted. And I said, "Well, maybe you might want to try it on someone who is not only suffering from COVID, but also pancreatic cancer." And that was their true goal in this clinical trial. So he said, "Yes, yes. Why don't you get on that hazmat suit and go through?" And from that moment on, I knew that if anyone was going to either help Shmuel live days longer or in any way, we had found that sweet spot where Hashem allowed us to meet in the COVID ward, because he did have COVID and I didn't. So I want to say thank you so much, Lorelei, Shangle, the group of you who have so clearly nurtured each other's love to unparalleled magnitude and resonance. And I am only grateful to be able to be participant and long receptacle of that love from the man that we all love, and who, praise God, will live on unquestionably in our legacies, as well as that he had already created through his family. So thank you. Thank you.
Amen, amen.
Remarkable. Thank you.
Amen.
Amen. Beautiful.
Amen.
Kaval.
So good to see your faces. It's really one after another.
It's good to see everyone. We still have 45 people on. I think we had like 110 or something. We've only been going for 3 hours. If this was a Seder at the leader's house, we wouldn't even be on to the second cup yet. I don't know. It's hard to make a lahavdil. Is there anybody else here who has what to say to whoever's left? And we are, of course, recording this. We're going to put it, I'm thinking I'm probably going to put it on.
I just want to throw it out there for those that, hold on, Shears.
Sure.
Go help. Um, for those that are, gosh.
I think
Heather,
Shoshana.
Zara? Okay. Can everyone hear me now? Yes. For those that are in the Bay Area, you know, we are here today, but also I'll be here at my dad's house on Friday. If anybody wants to come by and light candles, they're more than welcome to come by and stop by whenever they'd like to. For, you know, essentially for Shabbat, you don't have to stay for Shabbat, but just if you'd like to light a candle or say a prayer, we will be here also another day. So if you've had a few days to kind of reflect, and today maybe has been a lot, we'll be here for Shabbat. So
this is Sarah. Shoshana, I would love to do Shabbat with you this Friday night, if that would be okay. And I'm coming by in about half an hour to the house, bringing some food.
Baruch Hashem.
we missed a little bit of that. Sorry. We didn't hear that.
Oh, I just said I'm getting ready to come over there with some food. And I would also be really honored to make Shabbat with you this Friday if you've got room at the table.
Beautiful. We have no plans yet. You're the first.
Okay.
Can I say that Janet Petty has her hand raised and would like to say something? Janet?
Oh, I forgot that it was up. I couldn't even see it.
Oh.
All I was going to do, which I actually put it in the chat in the first hour because I had another Zoom meeting that I had to go to at 11. But I was able to get back on because I already kindly had another link. And so I thought, oh, good, I can try that link. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I'm a friend of Shira's. That's how I came into the family. And I was invited to the Palo Alto house, which is where Shira resides at currently, and was custom designed to help support her special needs. We met as creative artists in the street, as I'm an artist, and she was supporting another person creating gift cards, and we became friends. And we just have this connection. We just knew each other, and then time went by and one thing led to another. And I'm not sure when it was, just a couple, it's time's flying. It might've been a couple years already, but I was invited to the house. I'm not sure if it was her birthday or what the scenario was, but Prince was there to sing the whole evening. And Sandy was there. I had never met Sandy, although somebody had taken me through the tour of the house explaining who Sandy was and had shown me all the photographs hanging, including especially the one that I remembered and was posted today of him sitting in the group with Martin Luther King, and explaining what a phenomenal impact this person had on the world, let alone this family gathering. I was just there as a friend of a friend in a family gathering. So I go back downstairs and mingling, and this wonderful, delightful man walks up to me all dressed in white and started engaging me and chatting me and asking all about me. And we were having a great conversation, never shared names between each other, but we just connected. And I was just so touched, and later found out that that was her father. That was Sandy. And I'll always remember that, just that impact. And again, some time has gone by, and I was recently, Shira had relocated from Berkeley back out to Palo Alto, and I was up there helping to support her and just be there. For no other reason, just to be, with her. If you say you're a loyal, you come, and it wasn't for any other reason. And I think I spent like 2 days with her, helping her personally. And I just wanted to say that impact, and to listen to all these testimonies, just, I can't say it any other way, spiritually, just cements where I'm at as a human being, connected in spirit. I'm not Jewish. but I totally understand about the Jewish culture. I am a professed follower of Jesus Christ, but I believe, and I always tell people that I don't believe in religion either. I believe in the communication with God. And, we don't understand, we have such a little finite view of the internal, but in the spirit, how immense it is. And so I am just delighted and honored to be here to share with like-minded, because I've been talking to the universe, to God, however I want people to put it in words recently. I just need to be more connected with like-minded souls, because I'm 67 now. And I figure if it's like a football game, I'm in my last quarter. I still got a long time ahead of me, even if it's my time to go home tomorrow. I don't know. I'm lucky to have been alive since I was pulled out of an auto wreck at 17 and was left in a coma for 3.5 days. So I know I'm most touched by what Raymond was just talking about, legacy, and how he so specifically knew as his body was, being destroyed, but his spirit wasn't. And he was trying to prepare his legacy, including all of these external extended family, his actual bloodline as well. And that's the urgency I sense in my own spirit. So this has really encouraged me how, on a new level, how divine and how special it is to be connected with each other. And I just want to thank you for inviting me in, Shira and Diane. And I have not really met, maybe more than in passing, the other siblings, but I've always remembered Shira and Diane and Sandy. And thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you so much, Janet. Is there anyone who hasn't spoken who would like to speak? I don't see any more hands up. Is Mayor still here?
He had to go. He was here for a while. There was there was just some sort of a time-space continuum gap, but he sends his love. And
would anyone like to do a song? Is there anyone who would like to do a song? David Seidenberg? Karen? Anyone?
I'd love to sing a song with you, Sarah.
Please.
Well, I mean, that you pick.
That I pick.
No, I do want to say one little thing. All the deeds and amazing things that Sandy did, I loved how gruff he was. It made me so happy to be around that feeling of like gruffness on the outside and wonderfulness through and through. It just, every time I was in his presence, it just gave me a tickle to be around that. I just want to mention that.
thank you, Rev David. We have the Heliga Menachem Kalis with us from the Holy Land of Israel, who, although did not ask to say anything, we just want to acknowledge your presence, like we stand up for a Hacham when he comes into the room. This is our version. Hello and shalom from Berkeley, California. And Pesach wrote him, really good to see you too. It's a gevalt how many people were here from everywhere, and I will be taking this recording and doing something with it, and also giving it, of course, to the family with the list of everybody who was here, so they will have that as a memorial. It's about 1:09 p.m. People, how do you feel about letting the leaders go about their day and saying Lehitra'ot to each other? Shoshana, what do you think?
May you receive consolation from heaven.
Amen.
May Sandy's soul fly free and high in joy with enormous wings, and may he always revisit us in our hearts every day. Yai lai lai yai lai 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 yai lai 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 yai lai 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 yai lai 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 yai lai lai yai lai 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 yai lai lai yai lai 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 yai lai la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la la la. May we all celebrate this Shabbat with even a greater heart, taking into it some of the love that Sandy had for Shabbat. One of the things he loved most about living in Israel is that there were always people at the Shabbos table, especially to sing, though, you know, his own singing, he developed it through the years, but just with that pounding the table, joy and study and singing, may we all celebrate this Shabbat with some pounding on the table and invite him to in when you light the candles among the angels, the extra angels that come to us on Shabbat. May we all, Sandy, in now and forever.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. Hama kamirachem etzchem b'toch she'arav le'tzion b'Yerushalayim.
Amen.
Okay, well, we wanted over from YOLO, just and you know, Akiva, we wish you were here with us too, and we're just so grateful that Akiva was with our dad to represent us in Sfat, just for that week. But we're so, you know, we're honored that Ray took such good care of our father for so many years, especially when it was so difficult. And even when it was difficult, you know, he still was himself and had a fire in him, and almost impossible to believe that he really was sick when he was. You really wouldn't know it by the way that he carried on and carried on with such force. The word grace isn't quite the word that comes, but with a vigor and a zest for life that, as we said, hopefully is injected into everybody. And, you know, Akiva, I think, said a beautiful thing. You know, to be in my father's good graces, he had to really respect you. And so everybody on this Zoom should know that to be a part of his world meant he cared for you, he honored and respected and loved you, and that meant that you were important to him. And we just, there won't be words that really say what needs to be said about him. And so we'll keep looking for them. And as you guys, you know, we do want to write something, and as you think of things that come up that are meaningful, please send them our way, share them, even if it's just a one sentence that you have. We love him, and we hope that over the years more and more things about him come to the surface that give us joy. So we love you all, and I think we are good to close out this ceremony for him. Celebration, yeah. And as we said, we're here at the house. There's pictures and things up for people. We have joints for people to take away to light up in our honor.
Oh, wait a minute.
There's a bowl that is take away.
This is on the Shiva table.
Yeah, we won't give away his prototypes. We put those away for safekeeping, but we know that just a part of him. And so, you know, if that brings you joy and laughter, come by, come light up and take one for him for the road. Keep it forever when you think of him. And yeah, hopefully today brought some light. Yeah. Yeah.
We love you all so much.
This in the Aquarian Minyan, and it really means so much that, you know, so many people around the world cared and held him as family. Yeah.
You.
Yeah.
You.
Okay, well, we're gonna head out.
Okay.
We
Bye.
love everyone and yeah, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love you guys. Thank you, Ray. Thank you,
Oh,
Rabbi
thank you,
Sarah.
Laura.
I love you.
Love you guys.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Timely.
Love you, Goldfarbs.
Love you. They're
Bye.
alive.
Give everybody my
all.
love in the
Go
holy city
Farbs,
of
go the
Spot,
holy,
please.
go
Love you so much. Thank you so much.
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hasheming all over the place. I'm going to stop the recording at only 3 hours and 15 minutes.
That's about it.